Washington. The two top Democrats in Congress head to the White House on Tuesday for a meeting with President Donald Trump as the two sides work to end an impasse over border security funding and approve must-pass spending legislation before the end of the year. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, D-N.Y. and House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, D. California, will sit down with Trump in the Oval Office with less than 2 weeks until some government departments and agencies run out of money. The meeting had been scheduled for last week, but was delayed because of the death of former President George Hector Watt Bush. Trump is demanding that Congress give him $5 billion to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border and has warned that he'd be willing to shut down the government unless Congress allocates the full amount. Lawmakers have until midnight December 21 to resolve the dispute or risk a partial government shutdown. Republicans still control the House, the Senate and the White House, and they have the power to keep the government open, Schumer and Pelosi said in a joint statement late Monday. Our country cannot afford a Trump shutdown, especially at this time of economic uncertainty, the Democratic leader said. This holiday season, the president knows full well that his wall proposal does not have the votes to pass the House and Senate and should not be an obstacle to a bipartisan agreement. Budget talks have essentially been on pause pending Trump's meeting with Schumer and Pelosi. A short-term spending bill that has kept the government operating expired last Friday, but lawmakers passed a 2-week extension to buy them more time to negotiate. Congress already has passed 5 spending bills for the fiscal year that began October 1, but 7 others still await congressional action. The bills that need approval would fund the Departments of Agriculture, Commerce, Justice, Homeland Security, Interior, State, Transportation and Housing and Urban Development, as well as several smaller agencies. Those are the departments and agencies that would be impacted if there is a partial government shutdown. Border security funding remains the major sticking point in passing the remaining spending bills. Building a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border was one of Trump's pivotal promises during the 2016 presidential campaign. Though at the time he said repeatedly that Mexico would pay for the wall, Trump is now demanding that Congress provide $5 billion to erect the barrier. Could somebody please explain to the Democrats we need their votes that our country loses $250 billion a year on illegal immigration, not including the terrible drug flow, he tweeted last week. Top border security, including a wall, is $25 billion. Pays for itself in 2 months. Get it done. House Republicans have backed Trump's call for the funding. The House Appropriations Committee approved the spending in July. But a bipartisan Senate bill has earmarked only $1.6 billion for border security. Schumer has been adamant that Democrats will not provide the full $5 billion. What's more, the $1.6 billion the Senate has earmarked cannot be used to construct any part of a border wall, Schumer said last week, adding that the money could be spent only on fencing where necessary and for technology currently deployed at the border. Pelosi, who is expected to become House Speaker when Democrats retake the majority in that chamber in January, suggested last week that lawmakers pass 6 of the remaining spending bills and continue to fund Homeland Security at current levels, which include $1.3 billion for border security. Meanwhile, 4 Senate Republicans have introduced legislation that they said would fully fund Trump's wall. The Wall Act, sponsored by GOP Senators John Kennedy of Louisiana, Jim Inhofe of Oklahoma, Mike Rounds of South Dakota and Ted Cruz of Texas, would provide $25 billion in border wall funding by closing loopholes that the senators say allow undocumented immigrants to receive benefits and tax credits. Parents, for example, would be required to prove citizenship to apply for benefits such as food stamps and welfare assistance and would need a valid Social Security number to claim refundable tax credits such as the Earned Income Tax Credit or Child Tax Credit. The bill also would increase the minimum fines for crossing the border illegally and establish a minimum penalty for visa overstays. The legislation is unlikely to gain any traction,